Dark bleatings, everybody. I am here for another author interview today, and I have with me Willow Heath, who is the author of this excellent collection that you might remember me raving about last year, Managing and Other Lies. Hello, Willow. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Hi. Would you like to tell the uninitiated amongst the listeners and watchers who you are as an author and what your book is about?
Absolutely. Sure. So my name's Willow Heath. I am a former teacher turned blogger, former blogger turned YouTuber, and I am also the author of Managing and Other Lies, which is a short story horror collection. Well, I guess technically a novella and five short stories. It's about 200 pages long, and the stories in here are all queer or feminist, and they're all different breeds of horror. That each one has a different horror tinge to it. And the book was published in 2024. And yeah, other than that, I am a YouTuber and I also freelance as a book editor as well. Plug that.
Yes. Oh, by the way, anything that comes up, I will put links in the description so everyone watching and listening can find you and find all your services and everything.
Amazing.
Um, yes,
The
very
books, I'm good at it.
yes, very bookish centric day-to-day life there as well as hobbies. And this is nothing to do with anything, but also the fabulous owner of a Vivi. And I just felt the need to dang it, we've frozen.
Oh my God.
I just felt the need to proudly share this with you.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yes. Oh my God, mine's in the shot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the first things I ever noticed in your videos when I found your channel, and I was like, oh my God, I just feel like I'd be friends with this person
Oh,
because
that's so great.
my mother-in-law Needle felted this for me. So
Oh, wow.
she's
That's incredible.
yeah, so it's one of my favorite gifts ever.
Oh, that's
Um,
so great. Oh, Vivi has my heart. Yeah,
I know.
he was a big. I don't know why. He was like my spirit animal when I was a kid.
He's still my spirit animal.
It was
I
wonderful.
just love him. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
nothing to do with anything. I just felt it was very important that
No,
we
I'm
just
so glad. I'm so
pay
glad
some
that you have
tribute.
one. And yours is completely unique as well. I got mine in a shop in Osaka like years ago.
Oh, that's it's all still good Vivi representation, and I think there could be
Absolutely.
more of
Yeah, I
it in
do
the
my
world.
best. It's very
Um,
important.
so when I picked up your collection, I was thinking about doing a new video series on my channel that was like reading books by other booktubers, and so I knew about yours. And I picked up a couple of others, and yours was the first that I read because I was just very intrigued, and I was so bowled over by it, blown away by it. It was just yeah, there was just so much. It's such a thought-provoking collection of stories, and you think about different things in every story. So like I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I was just so happy that you're here to talk about it with me because I've been dying to talk to you about it for ages.
Thank
Um,
you. I am so flattered.
oh, well,
Thank you.
the first story in the book, Managing,
Hmm.
is about someone that goes to basically serve as kind of a caretaker of this house, and it's a little confusing because there seems to be this guy who's a groundskeeper that just pops up and inserts his unasked for opinions all the time. And then there's a woman in the house who we think might own the house, but that's we're not sure about that. And I just found the character dynamics felt really complicated but so interesting. And I kind of read them as representations of um things that the main character deals with in society and also like representations of parts of their own psyche maybe. Am I anywhere close to like is that what you were doing?
Yeah, you are literally exactly on the money. It literally is both. Like you say, it was either this or that. It was very much both. Um, I was because I don't think. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but it feels like how much of yourself can really exist without the nurturing of society, right? It's nature versus nurture. We are products of our surroundings, our environments, whatever. And so it is very much both. As you say, the nameless protagonist writing this journal after taking a job in a kind of haunted-esque Gothic house at the edge of an English village. And the house is supposed to be empty, but it isn't. And there's this man who just seems to be there. Like you say, he's kind of a groundskeeper. He appears in the kitchen, in the garden, and he just sort of pushes his way into the protagonist's life. And the protagonist is kind of too cowardly, nervous to do anything about it, and just kind of tries to stand up to him and ultimately fails. And then you've got this vampiric, ghostly woman who lives upstairs. And they are both very much supposed to be, at least from my perspective, everyone can draw and bring in whatever they want to bring in because a book is only half written by the author. But what I put into that story was that they are representations of the expectations and pressures put on really anyone, but
Mhm.
queer people in particular, and especially trans people like myself, to perform a certain way, to exist a certain way. And there's also an element of sacrifice with the woman who lives upstairs. She is semi-cannibalistic, I guess.
Mhm.
That's kind of a bit of a spoiler, I suppose, but I'm not really. I don't really care about spoilers. And it's my story, and so the very on the nose metaphor with her is like, how much of yourself do you need to sacrifice in order to live the life that you should be allowed to live regardless? So as a
Mhm.
trans person, you are expected to do certain things in order to pass, in order to perform the gender identity that you feel belongs to you. And people go, it's kind of the thing with like non-binary people, like there's this expectation that non-binary people look androgynous, and
Mhm.
that's not fair. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the thing, is that the man is telling our protagonist, be a man, and the woman is saying, if you want to be a woman, then you need to give up. you
Mhm.
need to you need to suffer, you need to bleed, you need to do these things that I demand of you. So it's kind of like what men and women by and large expect from someone in order to. And it's not so much, it might not be true, it might not be, like you
Mhm.
say, it might not be what society actually expects, but it's the internal pressures that people can put on themselves and think the expectations are. Oh, I have to do this because that's surely what people want. But it,
Yeah.
it might not be. We kind of can hurt ourselves by thinking, well, surely, I have to do this thing in order to, and you can kind of gatekeep yourself.
Mhm.
And that was where I was coming from.
Yeah, I found it just really symbolic. I was reading the story. I was meeting my friend in a little coffee shop and I thought, oh, I'll go a bit early actually. I'll take this book with me and have a little cup of tea and read out in a coffee shop. And I was just when she walked in, I was like, get out, try to read this. Yeah,
You're
sorry.
in a
If
coffee
anyone
shop.
notices any weird edits, it's because I don't know which one of us is having internet issues because apparently we're both fine, but yeah. So I'll be cutting out frozen bits. But yeah, I was just saying I was waiting for my friend as I was reading this book, and then when she came in, I was like, no, reading.
I love that
Um,
feeling. I relate to that very strongly. Absolutely.
Something that I felt I really connected to with this character. And generally, I've been reading a lot more queer fiction in the last few years, or queer written fiction, because I just at some point when I was, because I take a lot of review requests, I write a lot of reviews. At some point, I looked through like everything I'd reviewed on the first year of Happy Go Horror, and I was like, most of this is written by straight white dudes. And that was just the most of the requests that came in, and like the stuff that's advertised and like the authors I've grown up really liking all fit into that demographic. And I was like, wow, I'm reading quite narrowly, and I didn't even realize it. So I made a concerted effort to make sure I was reading just from people from all walks of life. And something that I have found with horror fiction in particular, written by trans women, is that nobody captures the horror of being a woman like trans women. It's so relatable. I don't know if I'm not saying that women have exactly the same struggles as trans women, because I know that there are different sets of things, but in terms of feeling like you don't correctly fit into the right version of what a woman should be, and if you don't look a certain way, then you're kind of othered, or expectations and things you have to deal with certain types of men. Um, and it just feels those kinds of things are very relatable, I think, to cis women as well, but it's amplified in horror written by trans women because I think perhaps the experience is it's more egregious. Um, because there's not only misogyny, but from certain types of people, like an extra level of vitriol with it. And I think that that guy in this story, I was like, stop, didn't ask for your opinion, dude. Like, she didn't, like, she wasn't even talking about the gardening, just like, fuck off. And I just thought about like every time I've said something and a guy's just gone, well, actually, like, and so yeah, I felt like a kinship with this character because I was so frustrated, like for the situation. And also there was this level of it was just sort of this underlying possibility of threat as well that is so uncomfortable. And I was like, oh,
You're
just
back. It's okay. That was like a second.
okay, good. Um, yeah, I thought that you just captured
Rat.
that feeling. Like it really made me anxious, but I'm reading horror, so that's what I want. Is the house in this story a representation of the character also?
Um, Honestly, that I don't know how conscious I was about that.
Mhm.
My gut is to say yes because I've never talked about this, but I mean I haven't had much of a chance to talk about it, I suppose. But um, when I was writing the book, I was not fully out at the time because I published it in 2024. I came out in 2023, I think, and I was writing the book in 2022. Or I wrote managing at that time. And I wasn't yet out. And that story was kind of like a process. It was me thinking a lot about the trans experience and wrangling with the fact that it related to me so strongly. And so I do think that the house felt I guess it kind of feels like walking into a thing that's like a Star Trek transporter. It is a thing that's
Mhm.
going to change you. You're walking into a thing and you will come out different, or maybe you won't come out at all.
Mhm.
It's a, going through a doorway is a transition period. So you walk into the house and the house will test you and it will hurt you, and that felt at the time like the trans experience. I kind of denied myself my own transition because I was scared, and so I think that fed into the story, but I wasn't really conscious of it. But
Mhm.
if you encourage me to think about it, that might be the answer. I don't know. um it's complicated, but I guess I'd have to say yes. If the two characters in the house are representational of how the protagonist feels or observes themselves, or feels assumes that society will pressure them into certain things, then the house has to be them in that way. Haunted houses are amazing like that, though, in horror. Like, I'm sure you'll agree that
Yeah.
the way that, like, I put up a video on my own channel about haunted houses and how a haunted house can manifest as so many different things. It can be a representation of grief and loss. It can be. It can. Oh my god, I'm frozen, aren't I?
No, you good?
I was so sure that I was frozen.
It was like a split second, but
Um,
the audio was fine as you were going.
Amazing. And so you read horror stories, haunted house stories, and the house haunted house stories feel quite evergreen because there's always something that you can do with them. There's always a new take and always a new angle. And it's interesting to come at them from a queer perspective, a trans perspective, absolutely. Um, as for, like, I wanted to take a chance to say thank you for what you said about, like, trans women writing the feminine experience so honestly in horror. Um, I've never thought about that, and it's too presumptuous for me to pretend I understand the cis experience, and whether or not trans women do a good job of writing from a cis feminine perspective, which is why we write from the trans feminine perspective. So if I was thinking about it, it would probably be that is it that by the time a cis woman gets to adulthood, she's kind of unfortunately used to the misogyny, has gone through puberty, has internalized and come to terms with the fact that the world is misogynistic, whereas say a trans woman transitions in her 30s, it's like going through puberty. We call it a second puberty. And so we're writing about the misogyny that we start encountering and that kind of thing. Maybe we're more aware of it because it's like we're younger in our feminine journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that the older you are, just in general, the more perceptive you are about the way you're being treated. Because I do think there is something to that, because I was thinking about just times when I've been on the receiving end of a casual misogyny and I've said nothing because it's barely registered. Things like I was a manager in this place once. I was the only female manager in the company at the time. And the security staff would always like start the day by coming into the office and they'd shake the hand of all the male managers and then say hi to me. And I was like, before I got promoted into management, I was like, why do you only ever shake like the men's hands? And they were like, oh, because they're management, so we just shake the manager's hands. So I was like, okay, that's fine. That makes sense to me. If there's a show of respect to management. But then when I was a manager, I was like, that's interesting. Hasn't even occurred. And I was like, and I don't think that they meant it. Just, I don't think they even thought about it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just little
Yeah,
things like that. And obviously there are varying degrees of the things you have to put up with. But the older I get, the more aware and annoyed I get about things like that. I'll be like, hang on a minute.
absolutely.
So I do, and I do think, you know, cis women are women, trans women are women, and we do have this universal shared experience of um just the horrors that come with it sometimes. Like I read a great story by a trans author called Walker Pennington that was about a trans woman going for plastic surgery,
Hmm.
not plastic surgery, sorry, a gender reassignment surgery, but with some plastic surgery in there, and the surgeon is like not a good guy. And that story, I was like, oh my God, that is so, it was so heartbreaking, because I was like, this is like, this is such a female feeling, to feel I'm not good enough. I don't look the right way. I'm not desirable, like all of these kinds of things. And I just, yeah, no, that's something that I've just been reading so much queer fiction since I discovered like these first few things, because I was like, I feel seen by it. I don't know if that's okay to say because I'm a cis woman, so I can't possibly understand
Absolutely.
the trans experience. But no, I just feel like, we're all just gals out here trying to cope with the world.
I think it's amazing that you feel such a kinship to it and that it speaks to you because my, have you ever read like Tori Peters?
No.
So she's a trans author. She wrote Detransition Baby, which was on the Women's Prize a few years ago, the Women's
Oh, I've
Prize
heard of it.
shortlist.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. She's great, but she has said before, if I remember correctly, that she writes, by the trans perspective for the trans perspective. She's not trying to write for a
Mm.
broader audience, and I was kind of doing the same thing. I was like, not so much writing for trans people as I am writing from the trans experience, and people cannot. I kind of assumed that non-queer people would read my stories and go, I appreciate that. I've learned something. I'm seeing a new perspective. But you are saying you're actually speaking to my perspective. Like, not only are
Mm.
you appreciating the trans perspective, but you're saying that the trans perspective actually does reflect the cis femme perspective when it comes to misogyny, sexism, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
That's amazing. I didn't think that never occurred to me.
Oh, I'm sure that's not just me. Because it's just, yeah, I just found it a very universally female, these things. If we could go on to question about the structure of your collection. This is one of my favorite things. I have lots of favorite things about it, but this is one of my favorite things, is that the the collection is so diverse, not just in terms of character and like the subgenres of horror that you're going into, but the actual writing style. Every story is written in a different style. Was that a conscious decision as you were putting it together?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, it wasn't because I didn't know that I was writing a collection. I was really just putting out a few short stories. Originally, Managing, I was hoping was going to be a novel,
Mhm.
and it kind of just reached an end and I went, oh, this is short.
Hmm.
There's nothing else I can do with it. So then I wrote another one and another one and eventually realized I had a collection. But
Hmm.
I was originally going to try and like send them to magazines and stuff just
Hmm.
as individuals. So no, they kind of came out, they went onto the page how they went. So managing felt like a story that had to be epistolary. It
Hmm.
felt like it was very personal. It felt intimate. Horror, haunted house stories often are very intimate because they're claustrophobic and um, they're too personal sometimes. A haunted house story can make you feel on edge just by how close
Hmm.
quarters it is. And so I felt like, well, it has to be a diary then. That just felt like it made sense to that feeling. You know, it's
Yeah.
Kafka-esque. It is inspired by Daphne du Maurier,
Hmm.
other authors. I was going to say Percy Shelley, Shirley Jackson, um, and so I don't know. The diary format just kind of came out. Um, the reason that the story Baby is
Hmm.
written just as a series of dialogue back and forth is really weird. It was because I had a dream.
Oh.
The most of that story was literally formed as a dream, and I kind of just filled in the blanks a little bit. But it was a horrible, horrible dream, and it's a horrible, horrible story. And the the way I remember to this day, I still remember the dream. It felt dark. It felt like the entire dream happened in a dark room with the lights off. And so I
Hmm.
kind of wrote it like that because I wanted to take out all the prose because I couldn't see anything and it felt like all you had were the voices.
Hmm.
And I'd already written a story as a play script and I was like, it's not a play, it's whatever this is.
Hmm.
And then the play script, I do not remember why I wrote A Mother's Love as a play. I have no idea. It just came out that way. I just started writing it as a play. It is odd. I am aware that four of the six stories in here are of a different format.
Hmm.
So you've got a diary, you've got social media comments and
Hmm.
DMs, you've got a play, and you've got just a list of like dialogue,
Hmm.
which I've never read anyone else do. And not that I'm boasting, but it was something that I just tried, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know why. For the most part, it's kind of it made sense to do that. I wasn't trying to do anything with it, really.
It's really funny that that was just a coincidence. You're like, oh, I've got a bunch of stories. I'll put them together. Then as it turned out, because it made for a really um surprising reading experience every time you turn to the next story. I was like, oh, because I'm always delighted by like a break from. I love regular third person narration, but I really love it when we get something like social media comments. I just find that so interesting because I find I look, oh, this is okay, this is going to be like a different type of story then as well. I do feel I loved the one written as a script because I'm a script nerd and
Oh, great.
I studied script writing and so anytime so rarely do I ever see like maybe Paul Tremblay's horror movie, there's
Oh,
script
yeah. I
parts in
love that
that.
book.
But if I turn a page and I see script all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, it's like they knew this is for me.
I'm
But
glad that you like. Did you enjoy Horror Movie? Because I
yeah,
like that book seemed to get a weird reception. I personally thought it was incredibly effective.
I think that Paul Tremblay I know he's successful, but I think he's underrated because I always see people complaining about his endings, and I think that's one of I love I feel like that's one of his strongest things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I
Yeah,
loved the horror movie. It was so weird, and
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, I didn't know.
it felt like his darkest thing. Like
Yeah,
it really made me feel gross. Like
yeah, me too.
it's like the book feels sticky and
Yeah,
unclean. I love
it's
that.
and I don't know if you've ever talked to Paul, but he is such a sunshiny, happy he's always like, hey, how's it going? Like he's lovely. And that I always find that with horror authors though, like you like the darker their work is, the nicer and lighter they seem to be as a person. I find Eric LaRocque is the same.
Oh
He's
my God,
oh
I
my gosh,
know.
what
Eric's the sweetest, like
what
the loveliest person. Like I got them to blurb my book, which was Incredibly
Oh yes.
exciting.
Yeah. Oh, absolute ball of sunshine of a person
Yeah.
is Eric.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so sweet. And the more that they go on as an author, the darker their stuff seems to get. It seems like the more successful Eric is, the more they're prepared to sort of like take the gloves off and go, how dark can I go?
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah.
I've spoken to I've done two interviews with Eric, and the first time I had no idea what they were like as a person. I'd just seen social media and read books. And the second we started, like, hello, how are you, Kate? I was like, oh my, Eric is so cute. You just don't
Such a
put cute
sweetheart.
with, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of dark, I did, there was all of your stories are so different, but the one thing I did think that kind of threaded them together for the collection was there's always a backdrop, if it isn't in the foreground, of violence, the threat of violence, the discussion that something has already happened, if it's not present. Um, and I know that you didn't write this as a collection now, and these were all individual stories, but were you conscious of that as a theme when you were writing these stories, or is that just something that came out?
I'm yes and no. So I'm glad that you said the threat of violence
Mm.
because that was something I was very conscious of. I also think that the reason there is a lot of violence in the stories is because I like body horror. I
Mhm.
like violent movies. I enjoy bloodshed in fiction. It's fun. I was watching Alien Romulus last night again. I love that film, and it's bloody and gory. And I was like, yeah, great. So part of the reason is just bloodshed is fun in
Excellent.
fiction. To be very clear, in fiction, outside of fiction, no, 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 never, ever, ever
Yeah.
think. Um, Fiction is escapism. Um, Little soundbite of me just going, bloodshed's great.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I'll do with this whole video. I'll just make a series of reels of out of context quotes from both of us.
it's horrible, horrible things. So yeah, partly it's just, bloodshed is fun in fiction, especially horror.
Mhm.
And but yeah, the threat of violence, absolutely. Because to go back to the man, the groundskeeper guy in managing, he is the threat of violence manifest.
Mhm.
And as a trans woman who, when I wrote the book, I was very early in my transition. I was afraid, I
Mhm.
still am afraid. But these days, I've been out for a while, and out in the world, I am perceived more as a woman than as a trans person,
Mhm.
typically. And so the threat of violence that I perceive or am paranoid about or aware of on my day to day excursions out into the world
Mhm.
is just the violence that men pose against women in general.
Mhm.
Like I was walking down the street just a few days ago at night and really was aware of the men who were walking around near me. And I was like, yeah, this is just the feminine existence, unfortunately. But when I first started writing these stories, I was aware of violence as it pertains to trans people specifically. Um, and you do kind of exist looking over your
Mhm.
shoulder and you build like almost a wider peripheral vision. Um, and so the threat of violence really was just the violence that trans people are threatened with. And
Yeah.
I was putting that into my stories. And obviously that also fuels a lot of bitterness and anger. And you have to be careful
Mhm.
as a queer person, as a feminist, as anyone to not become too embittered, I guess, because that's not pleasant for yourself. It's very
Yeah.
it's very easy to become just so embittered by the world. And while we should be angry and
Mhm.
there are great injustices, I also am very conscious of how that affects me as a person. I don't want to get bogged down by my own bitterness. And I do find, I said this before, putting that stuff into a story is like an exorcism. I put
Mhm.
it out and it's like I feel better, I feel cleansed.
Mhm.
Writing something like Managing, suddenly that strange vampiric woman is on the page, and so
Mhm.
she's not in here anymore. And it does kind of feel like an exorcism.
Tim Levin always says that horror authors tend to be the nicest people you'll ever meet because you get all of your shit out in your stories and you're not carrying it around with you to such a
Absolutely,
degree.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
Absolutely, it's cathartic.
yeah.
I often want to call things therapeutic, which
Mhm.
we all do. But Anton Her, do you know Anton Her?
Mm-mm. No.
He's a translator from Korean to English, and he's a good friend. And Anton, I just remember reading like a tweet from him years ago, back when we were on Twitter, and like he was like, it was just an innocuous tweet, but it stuck in my head as, oh, I can't say that, which was like, when people call things therapeutic, they're
Mhm.
not. Therapy is therapeutic. And so
Yeah.
like I've always just internalized that, and I was like, okay, don't say writing horror is therapeutic, but it is cathartic, and it does
Yeah.
feel, and it does, my microphone, and it does feel like an exorcism. My mic's got like springs on it, so
Oh.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, catharsis is probably the word.
I think it's cathartic to read as well because I think that one of the difficulties of just generally living with a fear of a threat of violence or actual violence or whatever, I find it's hard to talk about sometimes because I always have this thing in the back of my head. Anytime this comes up in a podcast or something, and I always hasten to add like, oh, it's not all guys though. I know it's not all guys, and because you just start generalizing like, oh well, because threat of violence from men and blah blah blah. Um, but we shouldn't really have to trip over ourselves to appease like a man that might be offended because if you're not the kind of man that does that, we're not talking about you. We know it's not all men, but unfortunately, it is so many more than you would think that it you have to be wary for safety. Um, recently had a conversation with a man about there was a woman in the gym that was like very ignorant to everyone around her. But I was like, I see it differently. Because the guy was like, oh, I smiled and opened the door and didn't even, it was like she hated me. And I was like, it wasn't personal. I just know that I have sometimes been in, like, say I'm in a bar. I haven't been in a bar for quite some time. I don't go out
Yeah,
anymore. But when
same.
I did, I would find it would be just safer to just come off as rude and unapproachable than friendly and then risk because if I was friendly and open, I would always have a really uncomfortable interaction that I didn't want to be in, where someone's like, I'm like, oh no, thank you, I don't want to drink, and then like, well, have you got a boyfriend? Is it because you got a boyfriend? Are you gay? Blah, blah, and then you find you and then you're trying to like mitigate, like, is this person a risk to me or are they just a pain in the ass? But you still have to put up with it and go through it. So I was like, yeah, I was like that. I see it through a different lens. If I see a woman being like, and like, do not talk to me, I just assume that that's because she's been bothered before, and it's just safer to just let strangers think she's a bit rude than to worry about it. And the cathartic thing about sorry, this was like a long-winded way of saying that.
No, no, I love this. Like, I have so many thoughts as well. I'm on your side. I'm totally with you.
But
Yeah,
the cathartic thing about reading this kind of fiction is that when you're and I write as well, and when you're writing a story or reading a story, you don't feel the need to be like add all these little caveats of like, oh, don't want to offend these people. I don't mean everyone. Like, because you can just honestly kind of have the discussion about it and feel relief that like, oh yeah, that person knows exactly what I feel about this. And it's nice to have it's like you kind of bond.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, literature is a conversation. All art is a conversation, right? Between the
Yeah.
creator and the viewer, reader, whatever they are. And you don't know how people are going to react to it.
Mhm.
You have no control over how people are going to interpret your stories, your music, whatever you make. And not have, because you can't have that control, you can't think about it. You just have to
Yeah.
create the thing, and then it will be taken as however it's taken.
Mhm.
And it's completely out of your control.
Yeah.
And with regards to the, not all men thing, I mean, I lived my life in a masculine experience for decades, and I can't imagine, thinking back to how I was when I presented to the world as a man. I can't imagine being offended by a woman saying, "Oh, men are rubbish." Like,
Mm.
yeah, men are rubbish. Like, I remember. In fact, this was like a egg crack moment for me when I was like 22. My best friend's sister, she and I we're pretty close, and she and I were chatting, and she said something about men being rubbish. A man did something bad. I can't remember what it was, and I remember going, "Ugh, men." And then like when I came out, like 10 years later, she was like, "I've never forgotten you saying that."
It's it's so funny, isn't it? I have conversations about this with the sorry, it's not a slight tangent.
No, go for
I
it.
I have conversations like this with the because the men that I have in my life are great men that I
Yeah,
love so de like my husband is an absolute gem of a person. I just adore him, and I also think that my brother, I know I have a bias, but I think he's just one of the best people in the entire world. And whenever we get onto these like discussions about like these kinds of men, um, they sometimes find it hard to believe, but not because they don't believe me, but they just because they cannot conceive of it. Like, and then if they, because men don't tend to always behave the same way in front of other men, the way they're behaving towards a woman on their own. And I remember I had someone here, a guy came to measure to fit some blinds. And my husband was in the living room and the door was shut. So when the guy came in and it was for upstairs windows, I just took him straight up and he had no idea that my husband was in the house. And we got to the top of the stairs and he was like, "Oh, so you just fancy some new blinds, do you?" He'd been in the house like 30 seconds. And I was like, "Yeah." And he went, "Oh, well, that's good because you could just run around naked." And I was like, it seems like a harmless comment, but he thought that I was on my own. He didn't know me. And from where I'm standing, I'm like, I'm a woman that he thought was in the house on my own, and he's just, he's just conjured sexual imagery, is what he's done.
absolutely.
And I felt safe because my husband was there, but I was very uncomfortable, and I was just like, oh. And then I got downstairs, and my husband was like, "Did he just say?" And I was like, "Yeah." So when he came downstairs, I was like, "Oh, come into the living room a sec." And my husband was like, "All right, mate." Like, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and then all of a sudden, like demeanor totally changed. And then when he left, my husband was like, Is that what women are talking about?" Like, and I was like, "Yes." Like he would never have said that if he'd known you were here. And he was just like, "But he just thought you were on your own, and what if you were scared?" And I was like, "Yes." I was like, "Thank you." And he was just like, "Oh, He went, "I didn't say anything because you handled it and I didn't want to like jump in." And I was like, "No, no, I appreciate that." But he was like, "No," he's like, that was a bit of a eye opener." And it's just yeah, I think it's easy to brush it off if you haven't seen it or
Absolutely. I
experienced it.
mean,
But
what you just said made me like gave me the urge to like do that. Like if I was in your if I had been in your shoes in that moment, and it just speaks to a lack of it speaks to dominance, authority, a lack of respect towards women. Just the idea that like I as a man have the right to picture you naked and to say things to you that will make you uncomfortable, even if they're just jokes, even if they're just comments, like men always say, "Oh, no big deal, it's just a joke."
Mhm.
He knows the power imbalance. He knows the sense of dominance that he has in that moment. He knows the impact that a comment like that has, and the fact that he like. Sorry, I hope I'm not coming
No, it's
across as like
fine, Carrie.
lecturing, but the fact that he suddenly shifted his posture and his attitude when he knew that another man was in the house speaks to
Mhm.
me that he another authority figure is in the house.
Yeah,
The parent is in or something. It's
yeah,
this
like
infantilization of women. Not only can you treat women like objects and sexualize women, but you can also infantilize women at the same time, which if you put those two things together is doubly disgusting. And ugh, men.
yeah. I- Yeah, I just felt like the sudden demeanor shift was because it suddenly occurred to him that he had disrespected the man in the house by making a comment to his woman rather than like,
Exactly.
and
Yes.
I was like, oh, because when you lay that out, it seems like such a like nothing comment. And I'm sure that he wasn't trying to scare me. He was probably trying his luck, testing the water to see if I was interested or like whatever. I don't know why you would make a comment like that.
No, I can't relate. I have no idea. It's terrifying. But it feels like an extension of the whole like you
Yeah.
have to you have to wear a wedding ring in order to scare off men. Like
Yeah,
the
and even
only
that doesn't
way
work
that you could
sometimes.
convince a man in a pub that you're not interested is by showing that you are already someone else's possession. You know, it's like, no, I'm taken. Like this
Yeah,
is my shackle or something.
yes.
Not just I have autonomy and I have decided you are gross. Please go away.
Yeah, so I gotta say, never had that experience from women. If if I've been in a gay bar and I've been approached by a woman and I say, "Oh no, thank you, I don't want to drink," they're like, "Okay, have a nice night," and I'm
Yeah,
like,
off you go.
"Oh, you don't want to
Carry
call
on
me
with
a
your.
bitch?
I
Like,
know.
are
It's
you
like
sure that you
imagine
don't?
just carrying on with your life. What a novel idea.
Are you sure that you don't want to call me an ugly fat slut and insist that you're just being polite? Are you sure? Like, are you just gonna wish me a nice night and leave no hard feelings? Uh, oh,
Yeah.
like so,
And
yeah,
like it's also it's always possible that there are going to be men watching and listening and thinking, well, that's how I would be as well. And like, good for you, mate.
yeah,
I'm so
yeah,
glad that
yeah.
the good men will never, ever, ever be offended. You know, when you feel the need, not you, but when one
Yeah.
feels the need to say not all men, we are unconsciously, I would argue, worried about offending the men
Who to
who
apply?
who it does apply
Yeah.
to them. They go, "Well, I'm one of the good ones." If you were one of the good ones, you wouldn't be offended. If you were one of the good ones, you'd be a good feminist who agrees that men suck. It's
Yeah,
fine.
you'd like understand what like what we were coming from and like acknowledge that those are real experiences that we have. Yeah. But
Exactly.
look,
The Terry
look,
Crews approach. He's a
yes,
good man, as far as I know.
yes. That was a
Um,
very long roundabout way of saying I found like that underlying current of perceived violence or actual threat of it was it's really effective in horror, but in all branches of fiction really. But I think it worked especially well here because the types of threats were so varied through because you've got like emotional physical violence but also like emotional violence going on. um I'm just looking at my notes because I got off script.
yeah, I mean,
um
I don't remember either. I haven't read this since I edited it, so
okay, we
yeah.
kind of covered perspective without me actually directly asking that. So I'll move on to my next one. Um, yeah, okay. Oh, Chloe Dot Clear one. I
Oh
love
God, yeah.
this story. Oh, this made it into my list of like top 10 short stories last year,
Wow.
and I loved it. And my thought when I was reading it was, oh God, I'm sure that this is inspired by you being a YouTuber, but I really hope that this isn't like directly lifted from like a real experience you've had, because
Can you
how
imagine?
scary. But for those who haven't read the book yet, it's about oh, actually, Willow, do you want to tell people what it's about?
Oh
You'll
God, no, can you do it? I don't think I remember. I actually can't
Okay.
remember how it ends. It's about a parasocial relationship between a commenter and a YouTuber and a commenter who leaves various comments on new videos and sends occasional DMs. But I honestly, I can't remember how it ends.
Well, we will spoil the ending anyway, but
Yeah, yeah, sure.
but I I my favorite story in this collection like shifted because like the further I got from the time I actually read it, I because I'm still thinking about these stories, but like I'd have a new favorite every week when I'd be thinking about them. But this is what I landed on when I was making my best of list for the end of the year. And what I loved about this was I thought it was a very sensitive exploration of the person who's kind of like presenting the threat as well as the person on the other because you've got I was just like calling them fan and creator just for like some shorthand, but the creator um is initially, nice response to the comments and is friendly and everything, but this fan that's commenting is someone they don't know. So there's like, it feels like there's some sort of like a little distance just maintained there, like a boundary. But the person commenting all the time, just, it felt to me, I felt sorry for them initially because I was like, oh, it feels like they're really going through something and they're trying to connect with someone that they feel is like-minded. And then it felt like, oh, I feel like they're kind of abusing it now to try to find an angle in. And then I was like, oh, and that reminded me of like a couple of people I've encountered in my real life where they kind of use a sense of obligation against you. Like, I feel like I should respond, otherwise I'm a bad person. And it starts to yeah, this creator just ends up having to take on more than is their reasonable responsibility, let's say. Um, and I love the formatting of this because this is all in comments and everything. And I was like, it felt like such a contemporary horror story to me in the day and age that we're in with these parasocial relationships. Um, is this something that do you worry about this? Because you have like a fairly sizable following. I worry about it.
Um, yes, I do worry about it, and that's kind of where the story came from. Was I think a lot of these stories kind of grow out of a paranoia of a what if scenario,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, so Chloe Claire, the character, was a Frankenstein's monster of various, I mean, thousands of different comments and
Hmm.
DMs that and I assume any YouTuber probably gets. And especially when, like, I wrote it when my channel was a bit smaller. And when you have a small channel and you want to curate a positive atmosphere in your comments, and so you spend a lot of time in your comment section. I
Hmm.
used to reply to every comment I got, and you do get to a point where that's just impossible, it's impractical.
Hmm.
But when my channel was smaller, I thought, yeah, I'll reply to comments. I'll let people know who I am, and I'll form a kind of community, especially like as a trans person, having a queer space, a feminist space, etc. I thought this is important, and people do share. People are lonely and
Hmm.
people are isolated, and the internet is supposed to connect us. And I thought the internet's horrible. Maybe I can create a positive space. And so people, I'm sure you get this as well in your comment section and maybe DMs as well, people will share and sometimes overshare, especially anonymity allows people to share, get something off their chest that maybe is difficult. And so I would get people who would leave comments about some struggle that they're going through. You know, my mum is sick, I just lost my job, whatever it might
Hmm.
be. And I kind of thought to myself, you know, after getting hundreds of these comments and starting to feel a bit weighed down and
Hmm.
feeling the need in my early days in my channel to respond to all of these, let people know I hear you and I want to create this positive space and I want people to know that I am approachable and
Hmm.
you know, all of that, I kind of started feeling weighed down, and I thought, what if, like, I have to push back a little bit. I have to not reply to every comment. I have to not get so emotionally burdened by it. What if, what if there was a YouTuber who was just a bit weaker, who
Hmm.
kept being polite, and there was also kind of the trans angle again as well of like,
Hmm.
I have to come across as friendly. I have to come across as being a polite woman who's always there to help, and then kind of stereotyping the feminine experience of being, you know, smiling and positive and all of that. And the protagonist, I can't remember if she has a name, but she feels she just falls into this trap of connecting too much with one person who's clearly going through something and hoping that just through polite,
Hmm.
slightly, you know,
Yeah.
arm's length comments and replies can just go, I hope things work out for you, you know, polite things that let the person know, I hear you, I'm thinking of you, but I'm going to keep you at arm's length because I don't actually know you. And then the other person, the commenter, just keeps pushing and pushing and
Hmm.
pushing. And I imagined, like, I've had all of these comments from people over the few years I've been doing this. What if there was someone who kept pushing and pushing and pushing? And I also thought about myself in the position of the commenter because I have parasocial relationships too with
Yeah.
podcasters and YouTubers. And like my favorite YouTuber, I once met in real life. And when I met them, I literally got weak at the knees. Like
Hmm.
I didn't know what to do. I was so I was flushed and so excited, and I thought, "Whoa, calm down! Don't let the parasocial relationship come out too much," you know.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at it like I did try to imagine myself as both of these characters a little bit, and
Yeah.
I think that comes through. I do think that I kind of put myself into both of them.
I get what you mean about when you're a fan of someone and you realize that you feel like you know them, but then if you meet them, they have no idea who you are. So you're
Yeah,
like, I always worry at conventions and stuff that I'm going to be a bit like, um, over familiar. like I start talking to someone like I know them, and then I suddenly realize, oh my God, this is the first time they've ever seen me. Like, and I'm just there like, oh hey Mike, my good friend Mike, that has no idea who I am. So sorry,
And
that
I'm
was a bit of
sure
a
they
ramble.
must get that every day, right? People who
Yeah.
are particularly enormous personalities, they must understand that you're the thousandth person to treat them that way,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
they know that they have that parasocial connection. They know how to handle it. So, I mean, I assume you don't want to burden them, but at the same time, you're not going to be the first person to go, "Hey, Mike, oh, I probably shouldn't say." You know what I mean?
Yeah, or you're just like yeah, I'm a bit of an oversharer also. So like things just come out. I'm also very socially awkward. So I'll have like these real life interactions with people at conventions and then walk away and I'm like, they think I'm a lunatic, probably. Like the first time I ever met authors, I almost cried in front of do you know who Mick Garris is, the director? He did like Hocus Pocus and
Oh
um,
God, I love. Oh my God, I know.
yeah.
Oh God, I always make such an effort when it comes to films, and it's kind of a recent thing because I've become quite obsessed with films over the last like 2 or 3 years. To always know the director of whatever,
Mhm.
blah blah blah, and to research directors in the same way I do authors. Hocus Pocus, one of my favorite films of all time. I've got a Hocus Pocus T-shirt that I sometimes wear in my
Yeah.
videos. I never knew who the director was. That's yeah. Okay,
He's
carry on.
He's done a lot of he did a lot of like those earlier Stephen King adaptations, like the Stand original miniseries,
Oh right.
stuff like that. And he was at a convention called ChillerCon about 5 years back, and I was so excited to meet him. And I was like, oh, I've got all these questions, I can't wait to ask him. But when I approached him, he'd just come off a panel with Tim Leben, who I was also a major fan of, Grady Hendrix and Paul Kane. And I was like, oh my God. So I went up there thinking, this is fine. And then I got there, completely ignored Tim, who I was actually the biggest fan of. And then I almost cried to Mick Garris about he directed Critters 2 and I just
Oh.
couldn't stop talking to him about the giant critters ball. And that's all that I talked about. And I couldn't stop talking about it. And I could just see him politely like, oh yeah, really glad you know, just trying to. And I was like, okay. And in my head, I was like, just let him go, for God's sake. Just let the man walk off. I was just like, no, no, no. So, yeah, I've
Well, I
told that
think
story.
I mean I think that's an interesting experience because like trying to imagine it from their perspective. And like I have occasionally had people come up to me and say nice things and like
Mhm.
it is incredibly flattering. I don't know how to handle it. Like any time I've had a few people come up to me in like bookshops and stuff who recognize me and then will say things and I'm like I I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
I don't know how to pretend that this isn't the coolest thing ever that someone has recognized me in public. But I do imagine that from their perspective, what they're probably thinking is this is about you. These are
Mhm.
your thoughts, your feelings about the film that I directed. I'm going to let you talk because I mean, the art was the thing that I made, right? That
Mhm.
was my side of the conversation. Now you tell me how you feel, stranger,
Yeah.
in a convention, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's how they're feeling, like
I
just
hope
trying to
so.
give you that. Like I interviewed Jeff Vandermeer like last year, which was so. It's on my channel if you want to go see. Like, it was so cool that I got to do that. I interviewed him in a bookshop because I've hosted a few author interviews
Yeah.
at Waterstones. And I asked the Waterstones person here in Glasgow if I could do the Jeff Vandermeer interview. And they said, unfortunately, we've already got someone to interview him. However, if you come along a few hours before the interview, you could interview him for your channel in the space where the interview is going to happen, you know? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. So I like brought my tripod and everything
Mm.
and set it all up, and it was great. Jeff Vandermeer is lovely, but what I really liked was that he bounced off my enthusiasm, like
Mhm.
of the Annihilation, what are they called, the Southern Reach trilogy.
Yeah.
My favorite is the second one, which is like nobody's favorite. And
Mhm.
so when I told him that I love that one in particular because it's got this Kafka kind of vibe and I love Kafka, he got really enthusiastic because I'm so glad no one ever likes that one. It's like I'm so because it's my favorite too, and I'm so happy with that. And so either when you say to someone at a convention or whatever, you know, oh I love you, and you start kind of going off a little bit with your enthusiasm, they're either going to kind of let you talk because this is your time to talk, or they're going to bounce off you and get
Mhm.
enthusiastic. And I guess those are the only two things they can do.
I think sometimes people find it endearing, especially if you're a
Yeah.
fan of a thing that wasn't as well received as their other stuff. Um, Shortly after that first time I met Tim Levin, who is a lovely person, by the
Mm.
way. We live very locally to each other, so just over the years, we've just become friends and stuff. But so it feels a bit surreal, like in hindsight, that I was like, um, but the first thing I read of Tim's was a novelization of 30 Days of Night.
Oh,
And
oh, great film. Really like
yeah,
that film.
and
Yeah.
the book is my favorite iteration of the story. I've read the comics and
Oh.
everything. I love the whole thing. But shortly after that convention, where I just really deeply embarrassed myself in front of him, he had a local little bookshop thing, book launch. And I just went along to that. I was like, oh, it's actually in my area. I'll go. And I was just sat at the back and he was just talking. And someone asked him, oh, have you done any tie-in stuff? So he just started naming. He was like, oh, yeah, I wrote a Star Wars book, a F Firefly book. And I just heard myself go, that's 30 Days of Night. It's like, and he was like, oh, yeah, yeah, thank you, 30 Days of Night. And I was like,
Ah.
oh my God. And this was like mostly this was an older crowd. It was a really quiet like in a little tiny art um display kind of place.
Mhm.
Art display, tiny little art gallery is what I meant to say. And I just thought, why have you I was like, all right, you need to rein it in or he's gonna start running away from you. I honestly don't know how I've ended up friends with him when those were my first two interactions with him. I was like, he has a lot of patience
I
and
think it's very
grace.
endearing. I think it's lovely. It's
Um,
really endearing.
Sorry, these are so many tangents, Willow.
No,
Sorry,
I love it.
um
It's really sweet. It's lovely. And like, yeah, I've had them too. So
yeah,
I fully get it.
I've just accepted it about myself now. Because of interviewing people on this channel, like I find that I could a bit more contained in person now. I've practiced. I always get
That's the
excited.
catharsis we were talking about.
Yes. The just going back to Chloe Clay.
Hmm.
Again, we've circled in a really roundabout way back to it. There's um the vulnerability for the creator character in this story for me um made me think about like how dangerous any information can be if the wrong person gets it or connects to it or feels entitled to it or something. Um, and I thought that the story was like it's like a fun story to read because of the structure and everything. But I just felt like it was a lot deeper than it initially seems like when you really start thinking about it. And uh it made me think about the kind of information that I have just freely given out. Even like I've only got a little channel, and that's what I kind of think. I'm like, oh, I'll tell a personal story because I feel like I'm talking to friends, but then it's like I put it on the internet, and I'm like, oh, oops, is someone gonna like I don't know. I don't even know at this point how many personal things I've said when I've been on other people's podcasts as well, and it made me start to think like, oh, maybe I should just stick to cats and books.
Uh, yeah, I've been guilty of the same thing
Mhm.
completely, 100%. Sorry, I didn't even let you get to your question.
No,
Sorry, you.
I didn't really have one. Well, I was gonna go to ask just when you're sorry, I wasn't gonna ask like many like book review questions, but when you're giving book reviews and you're talking about the things that you've enjoyed or you've connected with, and you'll like sometimes I do this as well, where you'll be like, oh, what I read in this was this, and you kind of like relate it to your own experience. Do you ever like worry about that afterwards of like, oh, maybe I said too much about myself there, or like, do you think there's like a line that you should stay behind, or like, what do you think?
Abs and I don't want to say absolutely. Yes, I think it's kind of a play it by ear thing. It massively depends on context, right? Like for example, there's a freelance book critic who I kind of I kind of knew via like Twitter back when Twitter was actually like a fun place to be. And she writes for like the Guardian and Financial Times and stuff. She's really impressive. And she and I met at a book event thing at Foyles in London a few years ago, and it was the first time we'd met in person. And she was like, "Oh my god, it's you!" And we talk on Twitter and blah blah blah. And she was telling me about a review that she read somewhere in a newspaper, and she said something about how it was one of the rare moments where the writer of the review didn't actually talk about themselves. And I like squirreled that away and was like, I need to make sure that my focus is on the literature.
Mhm.
But I think as if you write freelance, which I used to do, then you're probably not going to put much of yourself into it.
Mhm.
But we are YouTubers, and people do come to YouTube for a sense of personality, for a sense of parasocial connection, all of that stuff. And so I think in that sense, it's good to put a bit of yourself out there. And I also think, you know, if you review, say, a book a week, maybe once every third book, you bring yourself into it. I don't know. There's no
Mhm.
hard and fast rule, but I think it's good to show how a book can affect you and how it can leave its mark and connect with a part of your mind or your spirit or whatever. So I think it really does depend. Um, yeah, when it comes to reviewing books, I love the craft of criticism so much. You know, like I
Mhm.
listen to Mark Kermode, and
Yeah, me
I
too.
he's great, and I really respect critics. I always have done, and I love the fact that I get to be one. It's amazing, and I do think that there just has to be a balancing act, right, between how much of yourself you put into a piece of writing,
Mhm.
and how much you are more just focused on the piece of fiction. But then every piece of fiction affects every reader in a different way, and you can only review something based on your experience with it,
Mhm.
because you read it with your eyes and your brain, and so you put yourself into the review because an author puts themselves into the book, and it's a conversation, it's a connection. And now I feel like I'm making a YouTube video. But
No,
it's a
no.
fascinating conversation. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule at all.
It's the thing that I love about watching book reviews and critiques because it's the second I finish reading something that I've really enjoyed, I go looking for. I never look at reviews beforehand. I always go afterwards, because if if it's a book I didn't like, but I want to know why other people did like it. And
Yeah.
every now and then, I don't, I don't always agree with all of the critics I like about like some people I watch because I've got completely opposite tastes. Like completely. So like if they give like my worst books of the year, I'm like adding all of those to my TBR because opposite tastes. Um,
I can't
but
do that. I can't. I have to be on the level with this person or it'll just annoy me.
it depends on the personality. I think it's like if it feels like someone that I could be friends with and sit down and have like a nice discussion, a debate about a book, and it doesn't have to get like personal or weird, because that's happened to me before when I've like started just arguing with people. But I do enjoy watching critiques, and sometimes people like I'll get a perspective I hadn't thought of entirely, or sometimes I realize every now and then that I misunderstood something, so I ran with an opinion that was based on like, oh, I actually misread that whole sentence or
Oh
something.
God,
But
yeah.
it is a fun it's a fun kind of discussion space. A lot of the time, sometimes not so much. It depends on what we're talking about, I guess.
And depends on who comes across the channel, who finds the video, and what they're gonna bring to the comments and blah blah blah. You know.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
I
and it is you, right? It is your channel, it's your space, and it's your time to put out your thoughts and feelings, and they're gonna come with your personality. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's fine.
I trying to not worry about everyone in the world maybe not liking my personality because there's nothing you can really do about that, is there? It's
No, but
not
I
everyone
still
is your
struggle with
people.
it. It's insane how, like, when I make a YouTube video, I'm very conscious. Like I will say a thing and then I will immediately, as I say something, or when I'm editing it, I'll be like, I know exactly what type of person is going to react in what way to
Mhm.
this thing. You know, I fully know. I feel like I've gotten to a point where I could predict the first 20 comments that are going to come up
Mm.
in the video. from 20 different rough types of people from different backgrounds and, I don't know, political attitudes, age groups, whatever else. Like, you do get a sense that, okay, I said this thing, I know who's going to hone in on that and why and that kind of thing.
Mm.
And yeah, you do get a sense of perception because people to a point can be predictable.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know I am.
Yeah, I I knew I made a video once that was like top 10 novels, horror novels written by women or something
Hmm.
like that, the first year of my channel. And I thought nothing of it, but that taught me a lesson because the first comment that appeared was like, well, why does it matter what gender the da 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 da? I was like, that's an
Yeah,
angry guy who's probably about 50. I just
absolutely.
knew,
Yeah.
I just knew, and I was like, well, because women are still underrepresented, and I'm just trying to let people know these good, but like,
But
um,
no, but it's an answer. It's a question that is so obvious that he doesn't deserve an answer.
he was
Like,
just
it's very
offended.
obvious why you would make a video like that. And
Yeah,
he knows why. He can't be that stupid. I do, like, I truly do believe that people aren't as stupid as they often make themselves out to be in order to goad a response from you. So
hmm,
they will insult their own intelligence in order to wind you up. And
yeah,
so, like, at least that's my experience, because, like, if my response to him would have been, you
yeah,
know why I made this video, you're just phrasing the question that way, insulting your own intelligence. You're not stupid. You're not as
mm,
stupid as you're making out to be. So don't insult me, and let's just move on. You know why I'm making this. Let's carry on with our
yeah.
day.
Yeah, if ever someone makes a list of like top 10 horror books and all of the authors are male, no one says anything.
No,
Like it doesn't like so I don't know. But yeah, no, that's taught me some lessons about like what I can expect if I'm making so like I don't feel compelled to respond to all of that kind of stuff now, but I don't
definitely.
get too much of it at the moment, but I'm sure it's coming. Sorry, I know I have kept you a little bit over time. I just have a
No, no,
couple.
carry on. This is fun.
Oh, good. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Little Blue Sticky Notes,
Yes. The
which,
only non-queer story in the book.
yes, and it's again for people who haven't read it. It's about a woman who's moved and come out of a relationship for a very definite reason. The guy should not be around anymore,
Yeah, the guy
and
died. Yeah,
yes, and she
he got
starts.
hit by a car, I think.
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
starts finding little blue sticky notes around the place, and I that to me was a story about the continuing effects of PTSD. That's this is the same way I interpret like haunted house stories as well, because you're like, oh, this is a big mysterious place. Oh, don't open that door. Oh my God, there's a lot of stuff in there. I don't want to unpack anything in there. Just close that. Um, yeah, was that like the thought behind this story, or were you just like writing a good scary story and then just happened to have all of this subtext that I've just read into it?
Um, yes. I don't want to be arrogant enough to say I was just writing a good, I don't know if it was good, but thank
It
you
was
for thinking it's good.
good.
Um, I was just right. I honestly, that story from, like, death, this is a great death of the author moment, right? Where you have read more into this story. You've taken more from this story and projected more into the story than I intended. The story Little Blue Sticky Notes came from, this is literally what happened. Um my partner and I moved out of our flat in London and we moved up here to Scotland. And when we did, we put sticky notes on everything in the flat. And if they were blue, they were things that were coming with us. If they were, I don't know what the other color was now, red probably, then we were taking them to charity shops, giving them to friends, selling them, whatever, getting rid of them. And I swear, it took 6 months of us settling into our new flat in Scotland for little blue sticky notes to stop turning up. They were everywhere. You pick something up, there was a sticky note on the bottom of it. They would be stuck to walls inexplicably. How did they get to a wall? We didn't move here with that wall. That wall was here when we arrived, right? They were everywhere. And I went, that's a scary story. What can I do with
Yeah.
that? And that was literally it. It literally happened to me, and so I built a story around it. And the story I wanted to include by that time, that was the last story I wrote, I think. And so by that point, I had what I thought was a collection. And I was aware that it was the only non queer story in the book because it's about a cishet woman whose cishet husband dies. And I thought, great, a story that's not queer is going in the book. That's nice. That's
Mm.
diversity or whatever. And I didn't think much of it. I just thought, I guess the threat of violence is there. You know, men are difficult. Men can be abusive. Men can be this. Men can be bad and blah blah blah. And so that was as far as I got. Just the idea of like an abusive man has died and now seems to be haunting his wife. And obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, you're
It
right. Like PTSD and paranoia and trauma and old scars and everything else, it's all laid out there, but I wasn't too conscious of it. I don't think while I was writing that story I ever said to myself PTSD, but yes, it is there.
yeah.
And I'm glad that you feel that.
It was
Well,
it
no,
all
I'm not glad because
no,
PTSD is awful, but
it
you
it
know what
all
I mean.
it almost made me like it's not a funny story, but it almost made me laugh because again, it was so relatable. It's this I have a particular ex who has now become a series of very amusing anecdotes. But at the time it
Yeah.
wasn't funny. And I when I left him, I didn't tell him like where I was going just because I didn't want to be bothered.
Mhm.
And my little blue sticky notes were just like texts all the time, and it was always stupid. It was like, "Oh, I stepped on the cat's tail and he ran away out the window. Can you come help me find him?" Like seriously. And oh, I don't know how to use this washing machine. Can you maybe come and help me? And I was like, go away. And he was
Go be an
post.
adult. Go live your life.
I
Go
was
go
like,
sort your own problems out.
I told him to call his mother, and then I, blocked it. But he just texted me from something else, and he just kept knowing things like,
Do you mind if I ask how old he was when this was
oh,
going on?
uh, 25, 26,
No, you
something
said
like.
20. Like if he
Yeah,
was like 16 maybe, but 20 that's not
yeah. It was
that's men
no.
men hot take, men need to grow up.
He kept knowing things. Like he messaged me to congratulate me on a new job that I had, and I was like, how does he know? Like, and I was like, someone in my life is telling him stuff because I wasn't on. I'd gone off social media and everything. Like,
Right.
and I was just like, so this story to me was just so like what I think works really well in horror, that works particularly well in this story is like you're initially like paranoia, but then if like it's not paranoia, it's um oh, people will think I'm paranoid, but this is actually a truth that's happening. Like it's like you hope it's paranoia.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, yes. I mean, I'm working on a novel right now that is very much that.
oh, I can't wait to read it.
And yeah, it's about gaslighting, and I've talked about this on my channel. I have really really bad OCD. Like it's quite
Mm,
crippling, and we talked about like how much you want to put of yourself out into the world, especially as a YouTuber. Like, do you ever tell stories or talk about things in your life that somehow might overstep and be too much? So
mhm,
I've got a video that's going out tomorrow at the time that we're making this, and I mention in that video, and I'm dreading this, I mention in that video a book that I have planned to read that has been recommended to me literally hundreds of times. Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker.
mhm,
Kylie Lee, yeah. The book came out like a year or two ago, and people keep saying, "Have you read it? Have you read it? I think you'd love it." And I'm terrified because I have a phobia of bats for a really specific, weird OCD related reason that I literally cannot talk about. Like, I find it too
mm,
difficult. I'm not going to talk about it here. I couldn't talk about it in the video, but I have put it into the novel. So, the protagonist of that novel that I'm working on has OCD. The whole novel is about OCD and about a person's OCD, because OCD is all about intrusive thoughts.
mm,
You think, oh, what if I left the oven on? What if I didn't lock the door? But it can get worse. And so you can go, what if this thing happened that didn't happen? And you can make up scenarios through your imagination. If you've got an
mhm,
active imagination, OCD is a nightmare. And so you go, what if this thing? What if that thing? what if I have cancer is a big one. A lot of people, what if my hands are dirty? I need to wash my hands, all of that stuff. So that's kind of what I do live with. And so I've put that into the book. And all of my OCD tendencies and intrusive thoughts that I have are all in the book. The character is not me, but
Mhm.
she has all of my OCD because I
Mhm.
didn't know if I was going to write a book about OCD, I had to write my own fears, because I wanted to write a character who had a very different personality to me, sure, but the OCD part had to be me because I
Mhm.
had to project that. And I'm worried about it. Is that too much? Am I putting too much every time I talk about having OCD? Do I am I opening myself up to something? And then I start to get paranoid. If I said I
Mhm.
had OCD that had manifested as a fear of, oh, I don't know, dogs,
Mhm.
is someone going to send a package to me in the post that's a picture of a dog? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I can't think of anything, but like, I get paranoid and I think, okay, if I put all of this into the book and then the book comes out and people read all about my worst intrusive thoughts and my weird OCD related rituals, what does that do? Is that bad? I don't know. Are there consequences to that? So yeah, as a YouTuber, as an author, you do kind of go, how much of myself is safe to exist out in the world?
I
And
think,
where's the line?
yeah, I think if you're writing it into fiction, I think it's a bit different to sitting and just like relaying, because I think, well, I really can't wait to read this novel, by the way. Please let me know when you have ARCs. I'd love to review it.
It's going well. I'm churning it out. I didn't expect it. Like I've
Oh God.
written about a third of it and it's been a month. Like
Oh wow.
I don't know how because I spent last year I wrote a novella and
Mhm.
it's like 20,000 words and it took me all year. And I've
Yeah.
written 25,000 words of this book already and
That
it's the start of Feb. I can't stop writing it. I love it. I mean, I don't. It's not pleasant, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
I can't wait to read it. I think that if you're using your own truth when you're writing fiction, though, I do think that that's the best fiction because, like, like the way I've like said to you, like I've just connected with the stories in this book. That's why I love this collection so much because they're not only just like good horror stories, but I do feel like I connected with something in every story that like meant something to me, and I feel like that can't happen if the author is just trying to tell a scary story and there's no like emotional weight and truth to it. And I think that what you don't know as an author is how relatable it makes you to your readers, because we all have stuff that we think is weird about us, and stuff that you're a bit nervous about like revealing, but then when you put it in a book and someone reads it and they're like, oh my God, thank God it's not just me. That's always what I think. I'm like, oh thank God, somebody like no get I feel accepted by this person just by proxy, because I feel like we've got like something odd about us in common or something, or perceived odd by like I don't know, typical people, but what even is a typical person? I
Exactly,
I think
absolutely.
that we've
Yeah.
all got stuff.
Yeah. And
And
like even if it's not even if it's just something that's like especially with horror something that they write that is it truly feels outlandish, taboo, something that's
hmm,
like pushing boundaries, the kind of thing that no one should ever talk about or admit to or um
yeah,
and I often think of Eric LaRocca and I think like Eric has written some of the most grotesque splatterpunk twisted gnarly things that I think how could you? How and I love Eric to pieces. I'm sure they'll appreciate me saying that. How could you find the courage to put out something that twisted? If you can do it, I because of Eric LaRocca paving the way, I can write the most horrible thing in the world ever
yeah,
because Eric's done it, you know?
and made it mainstream. Not
Exactly,
like mainstream, but
absolutely.
like
Isn't that
in
wild?
yeah, mainstream. Like I've been following Eric just on social media for years, and it's because I must have read a short story or something that I liked, and it's just been so amazing to watch their career, considering the kind of stuff they write. And I'm like, yes, yes. Like I don't write this.
Absolutely.
This is not the kind of area that I write in, and it's also not the kind of area that I typically enjoy either. But Eric's writing is I know, again, makes me think about things.
Yeah. Have you read Andrew Joseph White's You Weren't Meant to Be Human?
No, it's on my TBR though.
So that book is about pregnancy, and it's a it's a trans masculine perspective. He's amazing. And without spoiling anything, that book has such a shocking ending that made me feel so nauseous and so uncomfortable that and because it's about pregnancy, when I looked at, because my story Baby, I personally think is the darkest thing I'll ever write. Baby is a horrible, horrible story. And when I read You Weren't Meant to Be Human, I went, oh, my story's fine. That's no, it's nothing. Like I wrote Baby, and honestly, when this book, like when this book was published, I remember going, Baby might be too much. The police are
Mm.
going to come knocking. These are intrusive thoughts again. I was like, I'm going to get in trouble for this. Baby is too much. I'm going to get investigated. I'm going to get thrown in. They'll lock me up for something because that story is so horrible. And it was based on a nightmare. What kind of person has nightmares like that? And then I read You Weren't Meant to Be Human, and I was like, oh, Baby is child's play. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
it does it does make you feel reassured that there are readers for that kind of thing, and that it's like
Yeah.
you haven't been extreme by comparison to a
Exactly.
lot of
Yeah. Like I recently read Exquisite Corpse. I'd never read that novel before. That book's 30 years old and has stuff in it that's so much darker than anything I've ever written.
I loved your video about that because I picked that book up when I was about 16 because I was looking for zombie books and I never read the back of a book.
Oh,
I just go by title, and if it's in the horror section and if it looks interesting to me, I do judge a book by its cover when I do that in a bookshop.
yeah.
And I picked it up just assuming it would be zombies because 16-year-old brain.
Exquisite
And
Corpse
yeah,
sounds like a zombie thing. Yeah.
and I started reading it and I was like, but it is a life-changing that was a life change. Like I didn't know that that existed as horror. Like that
No.
because at the time I'd just been reading. Well, 16. What had I been reading? Stephen King, Anne
Yeah.
Rice, Christopher Pike,
Yeah.
um, and lots of those point horror books. Had
Oh,
come off the
yeah,
back
yeah,
of
yeah.
Goosebumps and things. And
Yeah.
so I was like,
And
I
then
was reading
Exquisite
that.
Corpse comes along. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and I thought I will hide this from my mum in case she casually browses my books and then goes, "No, that's not appropriate," because it
Yeah.
definitely wasn't for 16-year-old. But yeah, it's no, that's the measure I put everything by now. Like, nah,
Yeah.
that exists, and uh,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I think it is proof. Well, not proof, but it's a good argument for the fact that queer authors really do put out the most gnarly stuff when it
Yeah.
comes to horror. Like you start with Poppy Z. Bright, and then you move into Eric LaRocca, Andrew
Yeah.
Joseph White, um, Alison Rumfitt. You can go on and on. Like so many queer horror authors who
Mhm.
really push the boundaries. And I'm not going to say why. I'm not going to be bold enough to go, it's probably because of this. I don't know.
Mhm.
But we're tormented spirits, I guess.
Yeah. But
um, but it's also cathartic, again, like we said. So,
But exploring, some people experience really brutal things, not necessarily the things that are actually in the books, but they're stand-ins for
mm,
like things that happen. And I do think it helps create empathy for people who are like, oh, I wouldn't relate to that person because they're different to me. We've got different backgrounds, and I just think that that's not true. And the more you read from people of different backgrounds and experiences to you, the more you realize that we're all more alike than we think we are. We've got more in common than we have differences, and the differences aren't reasons for us to not be friends either.
absolutely. And I think horror is a great vehicle for
Yeah.
that, personally, because I'm a mood reader. I read lots of different genres of fiction, but horror is like push comes to shove, horror is my favorite genre of fiction. Gothic horror, if I wanted to get specific. But like, I think there's something about horror
Mhm.
that provides a sense of comfort. I've said this before in videos, and I've had this comment. I don't know who originally said this, but people will say this over and over, like they're quoting someone, which is that horror disturbs the comfortable and comforts the disturbed. If
Mhm.
you have a disturbed mind, Be that because you've been through trauma, you've got PTSD, or maybe it's just that you're having a bad day that day and your mind is currently in a disturbed place. You know, you're sad right now.
Mhm.
You could have depression long term, or you could just have one bad weekend. Horror will do something to help
Mhm.
you, to comfort you. And often I think it's partly that you see people in horror getting through something horrific and you go, well, if they can do it, I can do it, you know?
Yeah, that's always my argument for when people are like, I don't understand how people can like horror. It's just all blood and guts. And I'm like, they tend to be underdog stories
Yeah,
about people
absolutely.
overcoming things. And I think that's what that's what I relate to. Not always, and that's not always what I'm looking for. You know, I have a nihilistic streak, as
Oh,
much as
yeah.
the next guy. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just think there's more depth there. I think that horror in particular is really good for developing empathy and
Yeah.
understanding.
I think all
Um,
my stories, thinking about it, are all underdog stories. Every character in my stories goes through some awful struggle and starts off on the back foot. Um, the novel I'm working on now is a bit different, but anyway, I'll send you some chapters and you can tell me what you think.
Oh, yes, please. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Um, I got a question about one more story for you, and then I
Yeah.
will release you. So we understand each other perfectly.
Hmm.
Um, chilled me to my bones.
Oh,
Oh my
yay.
God. I didn't know why I was nervous where in the beginning of that story, but I was like something. It's just I guess it's because I knew I was reading a horror collection, and I was like, "Oh, this is I don't know why this is going to go awry, but it is. Um, and I I found that the plot like sneakily took me off guard. Like it didn't I don't know where I thought it was going, but it just went to unexpected places for me. And then I don't want to spoil it for anyone, so I'm being a bit vague. But also it was like set up and it I was like, oh, of course this is where it was going when you know. And I thought it was the most conventionally like horror story
Hmm.
in the book. Um when you were writing all of these stories individually, did you have genre in mind at all? Because you're exploring really deep themes, like in different ways in all
Ooh.
of these things. So, were you like, did you have horror in mind, or did you just like look back at the stories after and be like, okay, that's a horror story?
I had horror in mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. These were all scary stories that, for the most part, except for Little Blue Sticky Notes, all of the other stories are very much, they all started out as a way to express the horrors of the transgender experience through various different angles and different types of horror. So, Managing is a gothic story. Like you said, Chloe Clare is kind of like a contemporary.
Mm.
It's about paranoia. There's kind of a psychological aspect. Um, we understand each other perfectly. I guess is kind of a revenge story,
Mm.
kind of. Um, it's like revenge on revenge. Like
Yeah.
the protagonist has to take revenge, kind of, without spoiling things. But the antagonist is kind of a vengeful person in who she is. It's hard to talk about without spoiling it, but so each one is a different kind of horror. And I was very much trying to write horror stories from the trans experience. That was kind of it. I just wanted
Mhm.
to write transgender horror. I read some books by Hayley Piper, Alison Rumfett, various other trans horror authors, Gretchen Felker Martin,
Mhm.
and other authors. And these are all trans femme authors who are writing very harrowing stuff, very politically savvy stuff, very kind of punk fiction. And I thought, I think I can pull this off. I have thoughts and feelings about the different aspects of the trans experience and just how many frightening things there are as a
Mhm.
trans femme person. Like, there are so many frightening elements to being trans. There are medical elements that are
Mm.
frightening. There are social elements. There are things related to family and friends, the horror of coming out and what that might mean in the workplace, what it might mean in your family life, what it might mean to there are so many horrors within I love being trans. I've talked about this before.
Mm.
Being trans is cool. I love it. And like I have a very positive attitude towards transition. I think it's cool. I think the journey that I've gone on is exciting, and every day I wake up and go, what's the next kind of step? Because transitioning is a verb, you know, it's an ongoing journey. So I love being trans. I don't want anyone to ever think that I don't, but I do think there are horrors. And
Mm.
so often, if not always, the horrors are external. There are so many things. Like you said, the threat of violence is always there, but that threat of violence could be men, it could be transphobes of any
Mm.
gender and age and demographic, it could be a mad doctor who's very excited to get you under the knife, you know.
Mhm.
It's going to be politicians and the media, and as it goes on and on. So there are so many ways to look at the trans experience and the horrors of it, and I thought, I'm going to write as many horrors as I can. I came up with 5.
Mhm.
um yeah, and that's why the new novel that I'm writing, the protagonist is trans, because I'm trans, and I feel like it's the most honest way to
Mhm.
write is to write a trans protagonist. But transness, I was going to say transness is not the point of the book, but I guess you'll see.
Mhm.
um, yeah, so I just horror is such an amazing vehicle for experiencing the world, and the threats and dangers and paranoias and everything that makes the world frightening. And being trans is great. I love it, but it's also scary, and I wanted to write that.
Mhm. Yeah, well, you did very effectively as well, I would say. They are like I know I've talked a lot more on like themes and subtext and all that, but just on the face of it, they are just also very scary stories. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
glad.
If
I
you're looking
really
for
wasn't.
horror,
I was never sure if at any point my stories were actually going to scare anyone. you know?
oh yeah, I was like at the very least very unnerved. And at worst,
Yay.
like I can't look away, but I want to, but I can't. Need to know. Um,
It's the weirdest thing to feel proud of, the idea that someone was frightened by something you wrote. That's a weird thing to be proud of, but I
that
am.
yeah, that's when you know you're doing the genre justice, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well put.
This is my final question.
Sure.
Besides asking you to tell people where they can find you and whatnot,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
what would you? I think maybe more people know you as a booktuber than an author at the moment. What would you like people to know about you as an author?
Um, that I am trying. I've said this on my channel. I say this a lot. Art is political. All art is political. Nothing exists in a vacuum. And so I want people to know that I am writing frightening stories about real issues and the unfortunate political social reality of our time. And I also hope that I kind of humanize the trans experience. Um, like you said before, the stories are relatable to you whether you're trans or not. And to feel this kinship, especially a feminine kinship. And it would be lovely, like you said, your husband came away from that interaction with that guy being like, is this what men are like? Is this what women go through? Is this It would be great for people to read my stories and go, I'd never thought of it that way.
Mhm.
I'd never seen the world through the eyes of a person who is vulnerable in a way that I'd never considered, or faces challenges I'd never perceived, that kind of thing. I
Mhm.
hope that I can just, through my stories, shift perspectives a little bit for people.
Well, you certainly did for me. I found it quite eye-opening and just very, yeah, I keep saying like empathetic, but I really felt that way. And yeah, it's a fabulous book. So, for those
Thank
who have
you.
not picked it up, I highly recommend. It was in my favorite collections of last year, and then obviously Chloe Clare was in one of my favorite top 10 stories. I read like nearly 600 short stories last year, just to give people context. So, one of my top 10s is in here. I highly recommend. I will put links for the book and links for where people can find you as well. Willow, where can people find you?
So the big one is my YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Or well, the big one. It's the important one.
Mhm.
It's where people should go, which is Willow Talks Books. I upload 3 videos a week. I have a Patreon as well, Patreon Willow Talks Books, where you can support me. And I'm on Instagram, also Willow Talks Books. I'm on Blue Sky because I got off Twitter, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, is that it? I think that's it. Yeah.
Well, I will link all of your public places in the description so people can find you.
And
Uh,
budding authors, I will edit your books as well. Willow
yes.
Edits Books
Mhm.
is the website for that.
Yes.
I love doing that, and I'm really good at it. So send me your manuscripts. Email me if you want your book edited.
I will be doing that when I'm done with the thing I'm working on.
Amazing. Yeah, my
Um,
prices are incredibly reasonable because editors charge a lot, and I think that's a bit silly.
yes. Um, well, thank you so much for giving me your time, Willow. I
Oh my god, no,
like I
thank
said,
you,
I
Kaylee. It was amazing.
was so excited to it's so exciting for me to get to talk about books I love to the authors that wrote them and
Yeah.
get more perspective. And I really, really appreciate your time. And I'm sure that everyone listening and watching has immensely enjoyed this. So make sure that you check out Managing Under the Lies and Willow Talks Books and Willow's editing services. I will pop links in the description for everything. And our little goatee sign off is generally just a bleat. So I'm going to say thank you again, Willow, and to everybody else, bleat.